people, backpacks, and other objects started flying out of every door and window all at the same time. Hey guys, welcome back to a Chaotic Commentary. Today we're going to be looking at some more petty revenge stories. Let's get into the video. First story, party every night and keep the whole house awake. Don't say I didn't warn you. This will be a long one, TLDR below. I've been reading all of these amazing little gems of revenge stories for a long time, and I just remembered one of my own greatest hits and wanted to share. English is not my first language. In fact, people from my country are known for bad English. Take a guess, so please be gentle. Some years ago, me and a few friends of mine were living together in this old but really fancy 3-story house. The owner of the house had walled off all the stairways and made 3 apartments, one for each floor. And we lived in the middle on the ground floor. As this was an old house, soundproofing was really not a thing, but it was never a problem until both of the tenants above and below us moved out and new ones appeared out of the blue one night. This story is about 4 to 8 guys living in the 4-bedroom collective in the attic. Not a joke, I never did figure out just how many were actually living in that tiny space. From the very first night they showed up, the non-existent soundproofing became very apparent, and we quickly understood that this might become an issue if not addressed. So after a few days, we rang their doorbell and introduced ourselves and really tried to greet them as friendly neighbors, making sure to be very polite and welcoming. And at the time, we brought up the non-existent soundproofing and asked very nicely if they could keep that in mind and that we would be very grateful. Of course, at this point, they were all smiles and agreed right away to keep the noise down on weekday nights. And in return, we would not complain about the music and partying on the weekends. After all we wanted was to sleep in peace when we had to work in the morning. Is it like college kids? Frat brothers or something? That did not last long. I will spare you all the friendly and not so friendly and passive aggressive ways we tried to find a solution to our problem. Let's just say there were a myriad of attempts made to solve this peacefully. Eventually, I flat out told them that I would no longer take our noise complaints to them, the manager of our apartment or the owner of the house, and I explained that according to our laws, excessive noise after a certain time on weekdays was in fact illegal, although common sense and decency usually made it a non-issue, and in the future I would take our complaints to the police instead, and I got laughed at for it. Now comes the revenge part. We all knew that some of the guys upstairs were dealing all kinds of fun stuff, and when I met someone I knew through work out in the parking lot heading for the attic with a wad of cash, I got all the intel I needed. And so I waited for the weekend to pass, and you could probably have guessed it. The following Monday night, they had a big party still going strong well into the AM. And by the smells and the smoke that wafted out of the open windows, I knew this was my moment. I called the non-emergency number for the police, registered my complaint, and gave some backstory. The nice lady on the other end was very understanding and said a patrol car would come around in a little while. I thanked her and said I would meet them outside. About an hour or so later, the patrol car pulled up and I went outside for a chat. And being the helpful citizen I am, I explained that the doorbell was busted. It wasn't. But a stairway in the backyard would take them up to the balcony outside the upstairs living room where the party was at. The officer thanked me and I walked back inside our apartment while grinning from ear to ear. I knew what was about to happen, and it was going to be glorious. While I was posted up in a window overlooking the parking lot, this night quickly turned into the best sleepless night I ever had. One of the officers remained by the front door while 2 more went around the back. Now, I don't know why there were 3 different officers in one car. Usually there are only 2. But in a moment, you will understand why that was very lucky. The music got turned off a minute or 2 later, and just like as if it were a fire, people, backpacks, and other objects started flying out of every door and window all at the same time. I could hear a whole lot of shouting through the floor, and the officer by the front door was literally blocking the doorway, trying to stem the massive flow of people trying to flee the scene. I made sure to take note of where the backpacks and bags that were thrown out landed, where there was tall grass and such, and kept listening, watching, and really wishing I had a tub of popcorn. Things calmed down pretty quickly after that, but the officers didn't come back out, so I stayed by the window, and soon another patrol car pulled up. Then another, then one of those big ones with transporting uncooperative people, and another big one soon after that. You get the picture. After watching the parade of people in handcuffs disappearing into cars and being driven away, and waiting a bit to make sure everything was over, I went back inside and called the officer I talked to earlier. Hey, I don't really know what just happened, and I'm sure I don't want to know, but in case you're interested, I saw some backpacks or something flying from upstairs and into that field over there. I could point out the general area if you like. That was a lie, of course, but being the dutiful citizen I am, I felt it was important to make sure they didn't miss anything. It could be important. A little bit of searching later, and the remaining officers left with a small pile of backpacks and bags and I went to bed with a big smile on my face. Quiet at last. There's a little more to the aftermath, but this post is already long enough. I never saw some of them again before I moved away, and the ones remaining were a lot more considerate of our need for sleep. TLDR, upstairs neighbors kept us awake most nights with parties and music. I called in one noise complaint to the police, and a bunch of people got arrested on drug-related charges. My bad. That's what they get. How you up here making all this noise and disturbing the peace? When someone threatens to call the police on you, you laugh in their face as if you didn't know you had a house full of drugs. You were asking for it. Next story. Ghost me? I'll sit on your board of directors. I went on a date with a guy a few months ago. It went well. We had a good conversation and a lot in common. He alluded to wanting to see me again, but afterward he pretty much ghosted me. I'm more upset at the fact that he alluded to wanting to see me again than didn't have the courtesy to say he wasn't into it. But whatever, it's fine. It happens. The guy lives in my neighborhood, which is a master plan community of about 6,000 homes. We live on opposite ends. That's a big community. A few months later, I decided to run for the HOA board because I sat on the board of the HOA I lived in prior and thought it was interesting. And no, I'm not your old neighborhood Karen. I'm a single guy in his 30s who just likes to get involved in the community around me. Come the night of the election, I honestly don't care what the outcome is. All I know is I did what I can to get my name out there. They introduced all the committees that report to the board, and lo and behold, the guy I went on a date with is on 2 of those committees. Okay, now I was determined to win. Not because I really care about him, but wouldn't it be funny if he has to deal with me? I won one of the 2 seats up for election with most votes. So now anything his committee wants to approve has to go through me, and he's forced to communicate with me. Also, a few weeks after our date, I hooked up with his neighbor who lives down the street from him, who he had a thing with. His neighbor had told me that he was super clingy, and I dodged a bullet. In fact, the neighbor had ghosted him right before we went out on our date. That guy told me to tell him we were hooking up, but come on now, I'm not that petty. That's messed up. How do you get ghosted and you ghost somebody else like you don't know how it feels? Next story. Sweet comeback. Last year when I was planning my wedding and the prenuptial photo shoot, I was stressed and was complaining about how everything was so expensive and that I couldn't get what I really wanted. My older sister would always tell me how everything, the photo shoot, the location, and the low budget dress, etc., was not important, but what's important was that as long as the groom shows up on your wedding day, and that it doesn't matter if the location or the dress was not as nice, etc. Basically, she would always comment how everything is not important as long as the groom shows up on your ceremony. I will always get annoyed by her comments, but kept it to myself at the back of my mind. I always thought and told myself that I'll wait until she's the one planning her wedding and photo shoots. I agree that the most important thing is the bride and groom, but fellow soon-to-be brides know why I was annoyed with budgeting, not getting locations or vendors I wanted, etc. Finally, the day came, and she's now planning her wedding for the next year, and now she's complaining and stressing out like I was complaining and stressing last year. I saw my opening and told her exactly what she kept telling me before. All the things she said to me before, word per word, I told her back. It was such a sweet comeback for me. I waited this long and was happy when I got to tell her her own words. Eat that. That's not that bad as in terms of like petty revenge, but I guess. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you found this entertaining. Tell me down in the comments what you thought about these petty revenge stories. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time, and don't forget to subscribe.